Good morning. I'm sitting here this morning and I'm thinking I have absolutely no great lekker intro, no notes on the intro and whatever. As I'm hitting the record button, I'm going, Lord, let's just do this thing. And I just feel actually now in my heart, as I hit play there, I just want to greet you this morning in the mighty name of Jesus. I want to speak the name of Jesus over you today, over your life, over your work, over your private life, your personal relationships, over anything and everywhere where you might require healing or restoration, or where there is hurt that needs to be healed, where there are bruises and cuts that need some healing. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over that this morning. It's an incredible thing when you go through stories that and new things come out of it. God fascinates me all the time lately with things. I'm still on David, by the way. Just put the coffee keys over there, I say. An interesting one this morning where, I don't know, it looks like we might be stuck on David for a while, but I'm not sure. But the interesting one for me is we're in 2 Samuel 12 this morning, where there's the parable that Nathan came to tell David after he sent Uriah out into the army and told the army to leave him behind so he can die. This is Bathsheba was Uriah's wife. Remember, Bathsheba is the guy that David saw bathing, and then he brought her to him and all that, all caboodles. Cheated, we could say. And then obviously made sure that Uriah died so he can make Bathsheba his wife. And then Nathan came to him, the very Nathan we spoke of yesterday. And, oh, no, sorry, not the same. That was Jonathan. Nathan was another friend of his. And came to him and shared him the story about these people doing wrong things. But it ended off in saying in verse 14, it says, you know, where David said, however, because by this deed you have given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also who is born to you shall surely die. So God gave him a word that said, the son that you will get from Bathsheba, he will die. And then it says, then Nathan departed to his house. And the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, and it became ill. Now, this is what David does in this situation, and this is where God got me this morning. So David therefore pleaded with God for the child. And David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground, so that the elders of the house arose and went to him to raise him up from the ground. But he would not, nor did he eat food with them. Then on the seventh day it came to pass that the child died. Then, oh, excuse me. Then, because the child died, David was obviously unaware because he was flat on his face in God's presence, pleading with God. And they were too scared to tell him, these servants. They were whispering among each other. And then David picked up their whispering and he went to them. It's like the child dead. And they said, yes. And this is what David does here. And this is what's very interesting for me. In verse 20. Then it says, so David arose from the ground, washed and anointed himself, and changed his clothes. And he went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he went into his own house, and when he requested, they set food before him, and he ate. Then his servant said to him, what is this that you have done? You fasted and wept for the child while he was alive, but now that he's dead, you arose and ate food. And here's what's important that David says here this morning. He says, and he said, while the child was alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, who can tell whether the Lord will be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. So David looked at the logical side of this at the end of the day, despite the emotions that he's obviously going through. Obviously, he's sore and he's hurt and he's suffering loss because he lost his child. But there's a place where I think it describes David had an incredible mind for the things of the Lord, for the afterlife as well, for heaven and stuff like that. He had, I don't know, he had a mind and a heart after God, things that he understood, that I don't know if you've ever felt like that in many areas of your life. But I've watched so many sermons and listened to so many, had so many conversations, listened to so many sermons over the last while, that when they were talking about David, and the obvious mistakes that he had and shortcomings he had, and what a bad dude he was when it came to making plans and all these things. But his love for God is always described as on other levels. His heart after God, the way he thought about the things of the Lord, the way he went full out, undignifyingly so, he went blasted out for the Lord. It's always the thing that gets mentioned. And of course, his unique and incredible level of understanding for the things of the Lord that seem to be above what people knew or can comprehend sometimes. That's how I feel, at least. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one. But God has the final say in our lives. And, he knows better than we ever will. Whatever the outcome is, God always actually has our best interest at heart, even if an event or a situation doesn't go the way that we want or that we expect. You know, and no, death is not fun, and it does hurt when we suffer loss of a loved one. It does. But when you look at how David responded, knowing you'll see his son again in heaven, then we get to celebrate the life. There's a movie called Courageous, who I watched. I've watched it many a times already in my life. But the lesson in this is as well where, yes, we suffer we suffer and we mourn the loss of the people around us, whether it be our parents, our kids, friends, family, brothers, sisters, spouses, anybody. We suffer, and we mourn them, and it hurts because it's loss. But then in this movie and also in here, you get to see that you get to celebrate the time that you did have with these people, and that you will get to see them again. I've never lost many of the things I just mentioned, so I can't even try to comprehend or relate to people that have. But in the end, I think there is a way to work through it. I've seen many people work through it and smile again today and smile again tomorrow and keep going and running hard for God, because God still has your best interest at heart in the end of it all. And that's what we need to learn and to focus on. Some people say God calls his favorites back earlier. It's always fun to laugh about it sometimes, if you can, when that time arises, But knowing that God ultimately has your best interest at heart is what we need to be focused on over here, Ecclesiastes teaches us that there's a time for everything. But this event here, this whole story about David, is not just about the loss of somebody and the loss of his son that died and his actions around it. What this showed to me this morning, and we take it to heart and we apply it to our lives today, we get to learn a few things. This is what God pointed out to me this morning. Yeah, David illustrates his desires about the situation to the Lord. He's flat on his face for 7 days, pleading with God, help me out here. Be gracious to me. But David knew, hoping that the Lord might change his mind. But I think David knew that God doesn't so much go back on his word either. Not there is times in the word where we've seen God change his mind, but maybe not here. But the point I received through this morning is, while there is still time. So if you still have time left, you give it your all. If you still have time left, you go as hard as you possibly can, harder than you've ever gone before. If you're waiting for a decision from someone, there's time. If you're waiting for feedback from somewhere or someone, there's time. If there's still a few days left before you need to go somewhere, there's still time. If there's still time left, few days left before you need to pay something. I know a lot of people struggle financially. We tend to be short often due to unforeseen circumstances. But if there's a few days still left before you need to pay whatever you need to pay, there's still time. God will come through for you, my friend. He does all the time. And even if he should not, on certain occasions, whatever the reason the case may be, the situation may be, to find out what God's ultimate bigger plan is for you in this. And then for some reason, I felt today I just need to end off with Matthew 22. That feels like it has absolutely nothing to do with this, but this just got stuck in my heart. Matthew 22, verse 37 to 40, where Jesus said to him, this is the two biggest commandments in life. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second one that is like it, you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and all the prophets. Be blessed today, my friend. Have a phenomenal day.